part of Job's story that we so often talk about is Job's friends. And that is the title of today's devotion. And we are on day 163 of walking through the Bible alphabetically. And we're on June 12th if you are following along on the calendar. Morning rinse today is Job 5 through 8. And the featured verse is Job 6:14. For the despairing man there should be kindness from his friend, so that he does not forsake the fear of the Almighty. And so the story begins. Job's friends. It is safe to assume Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar were in Job's inner circle and probably had possessions and wealth like Job, would be my assumption. It would be my assumption that these four guys were kind of like a tribe in and of itself. I am quite positive that these four men had many lengthy conversations with each other that included subjects like politics, social trends, religion. Who knows? They maybe even talked about wardrobes and fashion and what to do with employees and, the latest thing with their children and all the things, The ins and outs of running a business probably was part of it as well. These four men were the leaders of their own family, my guess would be, and they were friends, good friends. And it appeared that they had a place in Job's life that allowed them access to his front door at any given time. That would be my explanation of their relationship. This group of men probably been like accountability partners in a sense. And if this were the case, one would expect that these men who were Job's friends would be also, it would be an expectation that they would be his strongest encouragers and partners in prayer through this huge time of loss. But instead, they were very, very harsh to Job, thinking the worst of him and claiming this destruction was caused by sin in his life. And I think that that's partly something that I just want to make a pause here, that oftentimes, we forget that they were not, it would be one thing if they were going to Job and saying, hey, I'm challenging you with this thought, or in love, challenging him like they probably did on a day-to-day basis. I'm sure that they disagreed on how to run a business or how to operate, their servants and how to, what to pay for their employees. I mean, I'm sure there wasn't this 100% commonality between these friends. I am sure that they were in this inner circle together and accountability partners for a reason. They didn't do everything exactly alike. They probably bounced ideas off of each other and watched each other build their wealth around each other. That would be my assumption. Now, I could be totally wrong, but I've been in multiple accountability groups, if you will, especially with real estate and some with acting, and then just some friend groups, and I've had these accountability relationships. And it, if I go to somebody with a problem regarding real estate, then my accountability partners will say, Anita, you might want to check to see how you did this, and it might be something that could be the reason why that deal was lost, or this could be the reason why this happened, or what have you. And so you grow with each other with these types of accountability groups, and whether that be at church or what have you, you grow with them. These friends, I think, were that way. However, where a lot of times people miss it, or think that, I don't want to hear any negativity from friends or challenges from friends or disagreements from friends, because that's exactly what Job's friends did. But that's not true. If we look at what their accusations were, I mean, they were literally so cruel. And they believed and they accused Job that all of his losses and all the things that were going on in his life were caused by sin in his life. And their accusations were so cruel, Job boldly warned them to be kind to those in despair, stating that unkindness would even cause a grieving person to leave their faith. They were so unkind that Job had to say, if you guys were talking to a saved person like this, you're so mean that your unkindness could cause somebody to just walk away from God. I mean, that's how mean they were. That's not being accountable. That's being cruel. And after Job even warned them, he defended himself and he asked these friends to give examples where he had sinned. He even committed to listening to them in silence. I mean, this is where this accountability thing comes from. It's like, if you're used to an accountability group listening to criticism or listening to what other people are saying, if you're used to allowing that into your life and being open to accountability partners, because we all have blind spots. And if you're used to that, which is what it sounded like to me, Job was used to allowing these voices, this wisdom in his life already. So he committed to listening to them again in silence if they would tell him what he had done. And this is Job 6:24. But they had no proof of any wrongdoings of Job. There was not even a sign. Like sometimes we'll say, well, this is the appearance of something going on. And we can challenge our friends with even like, you know what, this is appearing, you know, like you might want to check this behavior because it's not looking real Christ-like kind of thing. But they didn't even have that proof. They didn't even have any type of appearance of any wrongdoing from Job. Only false assumptions that they thought were sinful and half-truths. So, example, Eliphaz was correct when he stated to Job in Job 5:17, he said, "Behold, how happy is the man whom God reproves." His advice did not apply to Job, making what he said a half-truth. Yes, God reproves people, but it didn't apply to Job because Job, they couldn't find any sin. He wasn't doing anything. And while Bildad was correct when explaining God's justice, he was incorrect in his belief that God would never allow the righteous to go through hardships. Bildad also went so far as to accuse Job's children of sinning, causing their death, which was in Job 8:4. He also claimed that Job suffered from generational curses, Job 8:8. And he also said that it was hopeless because he, Job, was godless. And that was in Job 8:13. It's not over. I'm not done. He then accused Job of putting trust in his possessions for security instead of trusting in God, causing his whole entire household to fall. That's in Job 8:15. And finally, Bildad attacked Job's character and integrity in Job 8:20. These men were close to Job, and they knew he was a righteous man. They knew it. But in a fleshly effort to have the answers, they grabbed at straws. This gave Job the opportunity to defend himself. And through it all, Job stood firm in his righteousness and defended his heart, guarding it against the accusations of his friends. That is a lot. You're grieving, you're going through a lot of things, and you have your accountability friends coming to you and listing off all of the things that they thought were wrong, blaming their children of sin, blaming a generational curse per se, and that was the reason. judging his character and integrity, accusing him of putting trust in his possessions for security instead of trusting in God, being godless, sinning himself. I mean, I cannot imagine if I was going through loss like that and my accountability partners said those things to me. I get that I have accountability partners that address questionable things in my life that could cause destruction. And I have accountability friends who I've allowed this in my life. I have friends who speak into me, and I've allowed that. And, not everybody allows that. I don't allow that from every single person that I know. I have a select group of friends that, are in each industry, and I hold myself accountable to them. And that's kind of the relationship that we have, or we're supposed to have. But they would never tell me that I'm godless. They would never tell me that, my children have caused my whole entire household to be destroyed. They would not accuse me of putting my trust in my possessions for security instead of trusting in God, which would cause my house to fall. I mean, granted, if I'm having a conversation and I'm struggling with trust and I've got my faith in, say, my real estate business more than I've got my faith in God, they have the right to call me out on that and just say, Anita, you need to probably put a little more faith in God right here through this challenging situation. But to blame that if my house were to fall completely, I can't see that they would do that. So this is where a lot of times people will say, oh my goodness, you in an accountability group, you're being mean to me because you're pointing out some questionable behavior, and therefore I'm feeling like Job's friends. That's, if you would look at the context of this whole entire story, I doubt that anybody would say that. Unless it were totally true and somebody were literally saying these things. I mean, goodness gracious, these men knew that Job was a righteous man, and yet they were pointing out and pulling out all kinds of things that were just absolutely ridiculous. But Job defended himself and remained righteous. And so today's challenge to dig deeper is to realize that sometimes it's okay to stick up for yourself. And guarding our heart is not just about keeping it away from things that could harm us, like sin and like destructive behavior and like things that could bruise our relationship with God. Guarding our heart could also mean vocalizing a defense to, our integrity. Vocalizing, a defense like, no, what you are accusing me of is wrong. It's okay to open up our mouth and defend ourselves. And if you need to defend something today or defend your heart, then I give you permission to do so. Do it in a loving, bold way and defend yourself. Always self-reflect and say, is anything that they are saying truthful? And obviously, Job told them, look, you're telling me that I'm sinful. Well, I'm going to sit here and I will commit to listening to you in silence. I will not interrupt. I will not say anything. I will sit here and listen. He committed to doing that. That was, in enough sense, self-reflecting, like, give me something that, you think, and I will self-reflect. And as you pull out your journal tonight and you're reflecting on today's challenge, did you defend your heart to a friend today? Did you need to today? I mean, oftentimes I say that if we are praying for these challenges or we pray for something to grow us today, there's usually an opportunity that gets presented to us, whether that be today or tomorrow or whatever, but have your heart be ready to defend yourself in love. Were you loving? Write it down. But now remember, never accuse your friends of doing what Job did, unless they truly did what Job did. But never accuse them of that, because what Job's friends did was absolutely awful. Absolutely awful. They accused him of things that I just don't even understand where they were coming from. And that's just me. But like I said, I listed off a whole lot of things that they were grabbing at straws for and blaming Job for it. That's different than being in an accountability group and pointing out something that really, could have affected yourself or other people. It's different. This is a harsh, not really a harsh part of the story, but it feels harsh because of what they said to him, through the grief, through the physical pain, through the emotional hurts. Yet he was able to defend himself in love, and he did not forsake the fear of the Almighty God. How can that apply to today and your life? And, how can that apply to areas of your heart that might have been hurt? And that's what I want you to write about. Did you defend yourself? Were you kind and loving doing it? Write about it. I hope today inspired you. And as we continue moving through the book of Job, I hope that you are gleaning things from this and from this story. And so enjoy yourself. And until tomorrow, keep rinsing, reflecting, and repeating. God bless you.